Welcome to the Building Sense for Life podcast. I'm Jacques Verneren, Financial Advisor and Director of NEMA. In each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we explore key topics like insurance, investments, KiwiSaver, buying a home and estate planning. Together, we'll unpack these subjects to help you build your financial sense and make informed decisions. Please note that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. So today, we're joined by Chané from ChangeState, and she's a business coach. She's recently gone out by herself, and she's here to give us a little bit of a discussion around business coaching and kind of what that involves, and a bit of insights from her. So Chané, welcome to the show. Do you want to kind of give us a little bit of an intro as to who you are and kind of what you do?
Thank you, Jacques. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone watching today. So a bit about me, as Jacques said, I've recently gone out on my own. That's a story for another day, but I've been part of the business coaching industry for 10 years in multiple different roles, but I really wanted to get the experience on the ground. Probably about 5 years ago, I joined another business coaching company that specialized in trades businesses, and literally it lit me up. And I think the reason being is because when I look at my background, I was always fidgeting, trying to look for ways to make money, trying to sell something. So I think that entrepreneurial spirit was always inside of me. And then when you do your career assessments, what are you going to do one day? Who do you want to be? And I was like, I just want to stand up and present to people, but I want to be in a pencil skirt and a nice blouse and be pretty, and it needs to be businessy. And they were like, there's no career that's going to involve that. Maybe sales, maybe going to sales, and maybe marketing, but I don't think that's an actual job. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? So if I went to go study, and quite early on in my career, I discovered business coaching, and I'm like, that's it. That's the word. That's what I want to do, because it had a bit of the entrepreneurial flair to it. It had the presenting and educating people and uplifting and supporting people. And I was like, this is it all into a nutshell. So that's part one. But then the second bit is I'm actually from a family of entrepreneurs. And like yourself, Jacques, you've seen the highs and lows of what business can do to families and the impact of it. And so Dad was working really long hours. To be honest with you, he'd get home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd literally walk past him to go have breakfast. He was passed out on the sofa. We'd walk past him, catch the bus, and that's literally our relationship with our father. We'd probably see him on a Sunday and have a really good Sunday together as a family. But that was our childhood. And I remember when we moved to New Zealand, he said to me, we were sitting around the campfire, both had a little bit to drink, and he gave me a hug and he started crying. And he was like, I regret not having spent enough time with you, and now I don't know if I'm ever going to have that time again. And that moment really gave me, like, I'm still talking about it, I'm getting goosebumps. It hit home. And so when I had the opportunity, because he's a tradie himself, so he's a mechanic, so when I had this opportunity to go help trades business owners as a business coach in this industry and profession that I loved, I was just like, hell yeah, I'm doing it. So I jumped in on board and off we went. Unfortunately, the agreements that we had at the time hadn't planned out. So I decided, well, let me give this a crack. Let me do it on my own and continue to make the difference and the impact that I have been making, potentially impact more lives in New Zealand. So yeah, we are.
So I guess that really ties into a question I was going to ask you, which was around the name of your business,
Yes.
which is ChangeState. And I think you did like a really great video on Facebook, a little bit of like an explanation as to why you chose that name. Can you kind of like delve into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I've had the privilege of working with some amazing human beings, and it was just reflecting on, because it was quite like, I don't know if you had the same with your business when you were trying to choose a name and either they all taken, you find a really good one, and then it's not quite giving you the feels, and you're just like, it just feels harder than it needs to, and it's just a name.
I think it's because you want it to represent something,
Yes.
and it's something about you. And so you try and find that one thing that resonates with you that you can connect with other people. So I think that's what makes it quite a challenge to try and think of a name, it's because it's so tied to who you are, I think, to start
Exactly.
off with, that you're very picky. And it could be anything, but you're like, I want it to be this.
And it needs to be this, and it needs to give, like, it needs to carry the purpose. And
That's my list of things I wanted to cover.
the like, because I find that I'm quite sentimental, so I come off quite like strong and bold, but I've got gifts from clients that have been like notebooks and beautiful things that I refuse to use, because if I use it, then I'm like, okay, well, that's a get it back, it's used. So it just sits there and it's framed, and I'm literally using the first book, a notebook that I've received, and I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to use this one because that's the intention that they gave it to. But back to the name. So the name had to have a significant meaning, and it was really challenging to get to, because business coaching on its own is quite challenging for people to understand what it is actually about and what it is we do. So I sat through a process of reflection, and I was like, well, at the end of the day, what is it that I'm delivering? And it didn't matter the different backgrounds, the different trades of the human beings and the business owners that I was working with. Everything that I was doing, I was always taking them from one space that they didn't want to be in and transforming that space, guiding, supporting, coaching them into a completely different space. A space that had meaning and significance to them. And because we work a lot both in the mechanics of the business, but also ultimately as a business owner, you can't make a significant change in your business unless you're working on yourself. Everything is you, and your business is a reflection of you. So if something's not working quite well in your business, that's something that you've got to work on within yourself. So it was changing that state of the business owners and the tradies to go, okay, well, this is where we need to work on in your areas of weakness to get you to that spot where you wanted to be. So it was a complete change of state ultimately. And I was like, that is it.
And that's what kind of pulled the name ChangeState.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a great name because it really it shows people, well, it kind of gives everything of what you want to do, right? And taking people from this one thing to something else. And it's going to involve a lot of change. And I guess, do you find that people are very resistant to the whole process?
Yeah.
Like, do you find that quite a bit? I mean, I would imagine so. Although I would think from the point of view that they're already engaged with someone, so they realize that they need a change, so they've already taken that first step. But do they still find that process of change quite hard?
I think it depends where they're at and where their journey is. And there's kind of like, it comes from two spaces. So one space in how the industry has formed, but then also to how, like, where the individual is at in these situations. So from an industry perspective, very similar to yours, there might be potential advisors or coaches who haven't conducted themselves in the way that they should, or haven't supported and held the clients accountable. And therefore the experience of coaching or the experience of being, gotten financial advice hasn't been as professional as what it should have been, or might have been professional, but not as supportive as so maybe that's the better word, not as supportive as it should have been. So there's one perspective where like, oh, coaches don't give you results. They just focus on the fluffy stuff, where I think there's, you've got to be able to get results and maintain relationship. And then the second part is, let's be honest, as humans, we hate change.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I know. That's why I feel like even that whole thing of like, well, I know I need to change.
Yeah.
Like people that say, have some kind of bad habit and they're like, oh, I need to stop that. They know it's bad for them, and they realize that they should do something, but to get them from realizing that they should do something to implementing that it's hard.
Yeah. And so they are like, we all as human beings, even myself, even potentially you, we all resistant to change
Yeah.
until we are in enough pain. So people only make changes unless the vision is really big or unless there's a lot of pain, you will not have change. So a lot of the times what I see is the business owners are in a lot of pain. So there's either extreme financial pressures or pain that they know that they need support to make a change. They're potentially time pressures, so things are running out of control. They don't have enough time. They're always putting out fires. They're losing control of their calendar and they just don't know how to get things back, that it's starting to eat into family time. And very similar to my father, who you're then working stupid hours, missing out on your kids growing up.
Yeah.
And you lose out a lot of the life that you're trying to actually provide and support. The other part is that they've decided to build a team. And when you build a team, that comes with dealing with human beings, which is fun part of business ownership. No?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the most challenging part of business, probably,
Yeah.
getting people on board and
Engage.
working the same way you want them to work and, kind of your expectations, but also explaining your expectations to the people that are working with you. I think that's
Yeah.
quite a big bridge that people struggle with in terms of trying to figure out what they should be doing.
Absolutely. And how to keep them engaged and motivated in that is a huge challenge, because as the eras change, it's a lot different to how it used to be. And with the millennials, you'll still get a little bit of the generation that works a little bit hard, but then it's starting to go, okay, well, what's actually in it for me? And I'm not going to do a job that I'm unhappy with, so I'm going to start to change. And that's how this new generation is operating, is if I'm not happy, I'm going to go do something I'm happy. Life's too short.
Yeah. It's not a bad way to look at it.
Yeah, so to keep them engaged and motivated, it's really hard, because
Yeah.
they've actually got to work and put the effort in, where before, that was self-driven.
Yeah.
And so those are the three areas that will tend to have business owners come in and say, okay, well, these are my challenges, help, right? But it builds up, it stacks up over a long period of time before they're actually reach out for that support. So by the time they're actually engaged with you, there's so much pain that they know they need to do something different. So I've had clients where the business owner landed up in hospital and his wife at that point was like, mate, we're doing something different now.
Is that because of stress or because of,
Stress and burnout.
whoa, okay, that's pretty intense.
So he let it go too far before he sought help. I've had clients who've nearly lost their homes due to it. So it's pretty crazy and scary to see the extremes, that how long people wait before they actually make the changes. Others can see it come, but then they're like, okay, I need help, engage with the business coach, but then they still a little bit skeptical. And that's where we take them through our process to just show that, you can trust us and we will guide you in the right direction. So that's ultimately, when it comes to change and dealing with business owners, that's what we're dealing with. But it's not always like that, because I think as new business owners are starting to come in and they've got access to technology, I've currently got clients at the moment where they started out in 2 years, that their business scaled to about 18-man team. And it's quite ridiculous. And they're like, we need help. So we need to go get someone who knows what they're doing, who's dealt with this before, so that we can learn the right way before, we sink the ship. So there's those two aspects. You're either in a lot of pain and you're needing to make the change and you need support, or you've grown rapidly, and that's where I said the vision. They
Yeah.
know where they want to take the business.
So the one's the pain and the other one's the vision. Yeah.
Yeah, and they know, okay, well, we can either do it ourselves and we'll take a lot longer, or we're going to get a coach, very similar to sports people, and go, okay, the coach can see where we're going and what the shortcomings are, and they're going to help us build that into strengths or avoid it so that we can actually get to our goal a lot faster.
Yeah, sure. Do you find, you were talking about some of those people that kind of had like driven it to a cliff. Like, do you find that they do turn it around, or what's
Absolutely.
that kind of, yeah?
Yeah. So,
And that's obviously a lot of input from you and guidance, I would imagine.
yeah, I like to think a lot of it. So, when you get to that point when you realize you need to change, we call that a breakthrough. And so, they're at the point where they're ready to commit to the change and they get their breakthrough. I just facilitate the change. I help them
Right.
navigate it. I help educate them and support and put the right structures in place. At the end of the day, as business owner, they're still responsible for the implementation.
Yeah.
Nothing works unless you're working, right? So literally, if you think of us like on a sports field,
Yeah.
I've got the tools and the systems, and I'm here to push you, hold you accountable, give you what you need to improve for the next week. But unless you're implementing it, it ain't going to happen, right?
Yeah. You're not going to move anywhere, right?
No. So I don't want to take the credit for that work because ultimately it's business owners doing all the work and it's hard. But they do turn things around, and because they've been in all that pain, they never want to experience that again. So we work to what they do want and the vision and the goals that they see for themselves. And it's just about driving them. And yes, like anything, it's human behavior. We slip back and I go, you're doing that pattern again, pull yourself up. So I can tell immediately when my clients haven't done their, like just the basic fundamentals of having a director's meeting, because the communication in our coaching sessions, I'm like, okay. So then I go, when last have you had a director's meeting? And then they go, and I'm like,
Like, I'll not answer, I'll just giggle about it.
that's it. And they all call it the eyebrow because I go, and they're like, okay, yeah, we know.
So do you think part of that, like your role is in part keeping them accountable? That's what ends up driving a lot of the action, because obviously they need the action to make change. But for some people, I would imagine it's that they need that accountability. Someone who says to them, have you had that directors meeting? Have you had this discussion? Have you done X, Y, and Z in your business this week? Do you find that that's what a lot of people are just also just needing in terms of a business coach? Like over and above the strategy and direction?
Yeah.
Is it like a,
So what happens is you go in and you study your specific skill sets. You did accounting, tradies will study their specific trade. Lucky for you, you've had some financial knowledge, so you know how to deal with the finances. But no one actually gets taught how to run a business.
oh no, for sure.
So you go, right, I'm going to develop and I'm going to get my skill set. And then you're like, right, I've had enough of being treated the way that I've been treated. I'm going to open up my own business. And off you go, open up your own business. But you don't actually have the knowledge or the understanding and the education of what it takes to run a business. So your marketing, your sales, your finances, your how to lead and manage a team, your operations and systems, customer service and delivery. Yes, we have an idea and we can get away with a bit of knowledge that we have and from what we see and what we talk to other people about, but that is limited,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
coaches, we need to come in and go, okay, well, where's the core issues of this business at the moment? We identify those, and then we need to help fill the gap with education and support. But then a lot of business owners do need accountability, because when you're an employee, who do you have to answer to?
Your boss.
Thank you. When you're a child, who do you have to answer to? Your
Potentially
parents.
your parents. It's debatable though.
in uni and school, you answering to someone. So in all your stages of life, you answering to someone. You open up your own business, who do you answer to?
Yourself. And that's not necessarily a good thing. For some
No.
people, maybe.
But we like to focus on the stuff that we enjoy.
Yes.
Stuff
And the
that
stuff we're good at.
and we're good at because it makes us feel good. So then we feel like we're successful. But because all the focus goes there, the other areas of the business that we're not so strong in, we don't
We
work
just don't believe.
right. And that's where you can identify, okay, this is the shortcomings and that's how we work it. And then it's up to me to go, okay, this is what we need to do. And there's nothing worse than coming to a coaching session. How did you get on for your actions for last week? Oh, okay. Talk to me what happened. That you couldn't do it. And when you don't have the excuses coming up, that moment of needing to answer to someone to hold you accountable to your own KPIs
Yeah.
then becomes, okay, I'll just do my homework instead.
I don't want to get told off by the teacher at the end of the day.
Some clients need a high level of accountability, others don't. Others just need more strategic direction. So it really depends on the personality profile, where they're at in business and what's happening.
So like in terms of if someone contacted you as a new potential client and they wanted to talk to you, kind of what's the process that you take that person through before you engage with them as a
Yeah, so the approach I've always taken, and for me, it's very much finding a client that's a good fit for me as well as I'm a good fit for them.
yeah, I think personality clash would probably not be a good start.
No, and we're fortunate because we've got behavioral profiles that we go through so I can understand the client where they're at. I can often tell by just the communication style how I need to work with a certain individual, so then that makes it a lot easier for me to understand them. But some people are coachable, some aren't, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So, and you can often tell by the openness of the individual of, are you actually taking the information on board or what I'm saying, or is there kind of a I know? So for me, the two most expensive words in the dictionary is I know, because it shuts you off of all possibilities. So you might have heard something before, or you might be familiar with the concept, but if you're not open to a different way that a person's presenting it to you, we've got a challenge there, because it's coming up multiple times because you're not getting the lesson. So we call it the shoulders. Like, you're obviously hearing it and you needed to hear it in a different way so that you can take the information on board. I often hear through the openness of the individual or business owner on the phone to see, okay, well, where are you at? In that phone call, it's basically just talk to me about your business, what are your challenges, and getting to understand them a bit better. Then I will decide in that phone call if this is something that I'm willing to take further. If I am, then we jump into a strategy session.
Yeah.
So before the strategy session, I do send them a massive questionnaire that they've got to answer, from how they spend their time, how much time they work in the business, to their financial numbers, what are they doing from a marketing and sales perspective, what are their conversion rates, etc. So it's quite intensive.
Yeah.
Plus, they've got to see through their profit and loss report for the past financial year. So I need all this information, so I've got a good insight into what's happening in the business as a whole, but then I can also see, because numbers don't lie,
Fair
right?
enough.
So I can see exactly in the business what's happening, and then in that moment, like when I'm analyzing all the data in front of me, I can put strategies together. So once the business owner returns that information to me, then we sit down, we have a strategy session. So we'll unpack the challenges in more detail. What are they after? Where are they wanting to be? We'll perform some strategies. We'll run through the numbers and say, okay, well, here's where you've got holes in your business. This is what we can do to fix it that aligns with the initial strategies that we've been chatting about. And then it's ultimately up to the business owner at that point to decide, okay, one, they've got 3 doors. So you start coaching, or you do a group program, or you don't do anything at all. So the option of I'll get back to you doesn't work.
That's just like a soft no, generally.
Yeah, because in the moment we know, we like gut feel, you can tell is this something for me or isn't it? Right? So if it is if it isn't, don't really care if it's not. At some point you'll be ready. But it's just being honest with yourself is, yes, I want to do this. I can see this working for me. Let's make the change. But when we sit on a decision, the longer that we sit on it, the more indecisive we become, the easier it is to say no.
Yeah.
So in that
And
moment,
more to like try and talk yourself out of the reasons why you should be talking to someone. It's kind of like you're trying to find all the stuff that will help you disqualify the decision and say, well, I don't have this, so I'm not going to get this out of it, or whatever the internal dialogue is, to try and justify for themselves why they say no, right?
Yeah. And oftentimes is like what we say, you either don't have confidence in our system or you don't have confidence in yourself. I've got confidence in my system because I know that it works.
Yeah.
And I've seen it produce results, and I can 100% go, I can guarantee you results, right? If the challenge is you don't have confidence in yourself, borrow confidence from me.
Yeah.
And then you can see it work and you can see you can actually do it. But a lot of times it's more the business owner not having enough confidence in themselves that they can actually do it. And the investment of coaching, it is scary.
Yeah.
So they go, oh, I don't know if I can actually do it. Well, yes, you can. You just got to be ready to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you find that with people that are, like their business is really struggling? They may be struggling with generating a ton of revenue, and then, obviously there's a cost to having a business coach. Like, how do you talk someone through that decision-making process of whether, like you're either going to go off the cliff, or the business coach is going to help you? What does that kind of conversation look like? Because I can imagine this could be very fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm not the type of person who sells you something. So when you're sitting in front of me and I'm supporting you through your business, I'm not in any way trying to force you to do coaching. Through the series of questions that I ask you about yourself and your business and the challenges that you're facing and working through the strategies, one that's going, okay, I can see how this will work for me. But then as we work through the numbers as well, that is where we show how coaching pays for itself. So there is the emotional aspect of the strategy, but then also the logical aspect of, okay, well, yes, it is a significant investment. This is what we need to do. It's not an overnight success. The more you implement, the more you work, the faster your results happen. But that's why I ask for those financial details, so I can see, okay, where are the opportunities within this business? What do we need to do so that coaching doesn't feel like an expense? Because within the first 12 weeks, coaching should have paid for itself back, right? Coaching should then become an investment.
Right.
So
Is that where you kind of say is that after 12 weeks, you should be seeing a big positive change within the business when they start working with you? Is that
if I
do I
can see
understand it correctly?
potential in it, yes.
Yeah. So like if someone has come, you've spoken to them, they've said yes,
Yep.
you start coaching them within that like a 12-week span, you're basically saying, well, we're going to start turning the ship around and you're going to see a lot of positives coming through. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
so it will depend on the business. So some businesses are high frequency, high volume, which means that whatever changes that you're going to implement today, you'll probably see in the next week or two, or 3, or in the next month. Whereas your more project-based businesses, they've already potentially got clients quoted up and locked into contracts where then whatever changes you're implementing now, depending how long those contracts are, they're only going to fall in place when those new contracts start.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, cool.
like builders, for example, they would have 6 to 8 months already locked and loaded. So they'll only see those changes later
Like
on if they've got,
financially, potentially, but like
yeah,
the structural changes I'll see relatively quickly, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
and so they'll have those big jobs, but we call them filler jobs. So if they've got smaller jobs they're filling in for cash flow, they'll see the changes there, and that often supports it. But it all depends on what the business model is.
business is structured. Yeah, yeah. No, that was kind of like going to be my next question was around like, when you start working with a business coach, like what's the kind of lead time in terms of, when do you see change? But that fully makes 100% sense. Like it depends on your personal sales cycle within your business. And if it's a short cycle, like you're selling widgets to people and you can make tangible change tomorrow,
Yeah,
like whether that's pricing or whatever, then you can see that quite quickly. But if you're doing something that takes 12 weeks to see a result from the first, kind of interaction with someone, then it's going to take a lot longer to see those
yeah.
benefits, right?
And it is also based on the openness of the individual and how much they actually implementing. So I've had clients,
Ideal client, ideal client.
but it's the reality, right? So like even closed door clients will jump in and they'll be like, I'm going to do this coaching, I'm going to make a change, but they're still blocked in their perception. So I've had clients jump in and they transform their business, literally same industry, same size businesses, both living out in the rural. One business owner fixed, one business owner open. The business owner that was fixed, they worked with me for 10 to 12 months. I busted my butt pulling out every single strategy that I can think of to help these business owners change and transform and see things in a different way.
Yeah.
Nothing worked.
Wow.
Different business, same issues. Business owners were open.
Yeah. Massive
And it
change.
took everything on board. That business was changed in 3 months.
Wow. I guess that's why it's so important for you to have that like really good feeling at the initial call when you're talking to someone, that prevents people from saying like, well, a business coach is a waste of time, when
Yeah,
realistically it's like their perception of what they're putting into being coached. If they're not open to coaching, well, then it doesn't matter.
it's not going to work.
Yeah. That's like a good way to like kind of highlight the two, right? In terms of what works and what doesn't, and being coachable.
And that's why I say I don't sell people. I'm not here to push you into a situation, because if you're not ready, you're going to be the absolute worst client that I've ever received, because I can sell ice to an Eskimo, but it's not going to be beneficial for me long term, because it's going to be more hard work, more frustration. It's going to end up being reputation damage for me because I haven't got the results for you that you were expecting through coaching.
Yeah.
And so there's no point pushing someone who's not ready to do coaching.
Yeah. And they're not
If they're not,
going to take it on board.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's with a lot of things in life, when people aren't ready to like accept, I guess in a way, criticism or the way that things could potentially be better. And like you've kind of mentioned, people that say, I know, there's like I think there's a lot to be said for being curious and like wanting to understand things, and that being open and curious like helps to figure stuff out. And like if you're not going to be open and curious about stuff, it's not going to be useful for anyone.
yes,
Like without thinking about business coaching, it's like everything in life, right? If you're not open to new experiences or new ways of doing things, you're never going to learn anything. You're just going to be stuck in the same whatever you're doing, whether that's, how you cook stuff at home or whatever, like you could think of any kind of really example on that, whether
yeah,
it's baseline, easy things or big fundamental things, like how do I change my business?
yeah. And it's because it was funny. I was having a chat so every coach needs a coach. Doesn't matter
Do you have
what.
a business coach too?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what.
Walk the walk, right?
That's it. So if I expect my clients to have a coach, I need support as well. And because I'm not going to see my own blind spots,
Yeah.
and I need someone to be able to go, well, actually, pull yourself up, lady, and let's get going, because you're not working well in that area, but you're doing extremely well in these areas. But it's more from the sports related side. So I was speaking to my coach that I was training with, and we were just talking about how other members or athletes, they're not quite putting in the foundation skills into their training. And so when they go higher up in the levels, you can see a breakdown in their performance because they don't have the foundations. And I said, well, it's kind of like everyone's on a journey, right? And on this journey, people are only willing to pick up the information that they need for where they're at. So you might be 20 steps ahead and you go, I can see that you're needing this support, but the way that you're saying it, or I've gone through that experience, and that's what I would have done differently if I were you, if I was in that situation again. And so we want to help people, we give them the advice, hoping that they will take it on, and they don't take it on because for where they're at, they don't have that level of curiosity or need for the information yet. They've still got to walk their journey.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they pick it up, and then only when they're halfway, they go, you know what, I should have done that. And you're like, I told you that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But because they weren't ready to receive the information, doesn't matter how much information you give them, they're not going to
Yeah.
take it
It's just not
forward.
a process.
And that's
Yeah.
part of the coaching as well, because we can see a big picture, and often we've got to go, okay, I need you to be working on this. And there have been times where we have to let clients hit their heads a few times before they actually take the message on board. And then you're like, yes, thank you, finally. Like, I've watched
Finally.
them go through all this pain, but it's part of their journey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating to work with it. It's just about how you kind of navigate those situations where you're like, okay, they're just not ready yet.
Yeah. No, that's fair. What I was going to ask you as well was, in that like intro video you did about your business, you had like a couple of, I guess, stories around how
Yeah.
you invoke change. Do you want to like touch on one or two of those? I think they were like really good in terms of explaining what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So the first one, I might tear up, so you'll just deal with me as I'm talking.
Hey, emotion and being connected to your people is a good thing.
Yeah, and it is quite a intimate relationship coaching because you get to know each other really well. So this young family, they came to me. I literally remember we were sitting in the strategy session, and because it was like Builder and his wife, she was sitting next to him, and she just burst into tears. I was not expecting it. Because she comes across quite strong and carries herself really well like I do. So to see her break down in that moment, I was like, okay, this is really serious for her to be able to get to that point. And they were in massive financial stress and pressure. They had like contracts that were still dated back into COVID days that they had to see through, but the pricing that they structured it on was really poor. So every single job that they were doing, they were making a massive loss. Massive loss. And they were just digging themselves a hole as they were going through. And we sat in the session and we worked through the strategies. And at the end, I gave them the 3 doors that I mentioned earlier. And they had said to me, we want to do it, but we can't do it now. So I said, well, there's no time like now to start. What's it going to take? And so they said yes. They signed the contract, committed to everything, but they started a month later and they were actually showed up. So that was interesting because usually what you'll find is people drop off. These guys showed up and they had extended their mortgage to be able to do coaching and pay for it.
Right.
Which is big.
Yeah.
really, really big, and they sat and they did the hard work. I battled with the trainee. I still laugh with him to this day where I'm like, do you remember how hard it was just to get you to buy into what I was saying? And now look where you're at. Like completely different. So they did the hard work. It took them 18 months. 18 months. We were lucky that we could fit in smaller jobs to literally just help them break even. But 18 long months of work, and through that, like as they made it through that period, they were able to buy their dream home, beautiful lifestyle block that they starting to kind of create hobby businesses on,
Oh,
which is
wow.
quite beautiful. They've got a beautiful little girl that they conceived through IVF, so she's their absolute world, and just to see her running and playing in the garden it still lights me up. They got their new vehicles that they wanted. They bought a trailer. They're going on the holidays that, they've pictured as a family that they would. And to be able to be an instrument of change for them to go from needing to take out a mortgage to being able to pay for coaching to buying the dream property.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work. I'm not lying, Jacques. There
Yeah.
were coaching sessions. There were heaps of tears.
Yeah. Probably tough
Every
ones.
month it was stressful, but they made it through and they're living the dream now, which is just so significant. So that's one story. The other one that I mentioned a bit earlier where the trainee landed up in hospital, that was really hard from stress, from burnout. He wouldn't even let his staff back a trailer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or take the rubbish to the tip because he was afraid that they'd smash the trailer or damage the car. So we went from slowly letting go to now the team, all he focuses on is new business development and going to do up quotes and training the team. So he's let go of all the doing.
Yes.
To being able to do that. Also, if the kids have dance recitals or school sports, or if he just feels like taking the day off, he literally tells the team, right, I'm just taking the day off to go spend with the kids. And it sounds good to be true. I'm saying this and you're like, yeah,
No, I mean,
real story, but it's absolutely these are real people.
I think, in my experience in business and what I've seen from people is that you kind of have the two sides of business owners. You have those business owners that work in the business and they like the dancing bear, the circus, and if they stop dancing, there's no income.
Yes.
And then you get those that really work on their business and make sure that they can get themselves removed from the business and the day-to-day processes, and the business still functions. And a lot of people get stuck in the doing and not the every day doing, this is what I need to do to generate revenue, but not really taking the step back and saying, well, how do I build a business that I don't have to be running around every day? Because I think the goal really for any business owner is, well, not any business, but is to have that ability to take some time off without feeling that you have to have both hands in the steering wheel and tell everyone exactly what they need to do, and tell people what they need to do in a way that the business runs well without you interfering all the time.
Absolutely. And that can be a choice. These business owners that I've worked with that want to build an empire, right? And it's crazy because you're looking at them and you're like, you're going to burn out anytime soon. And they just never burn out. Fascinating to watch. But they just that driven and involved in the business that we've got to show them that there's a little bit of balance in life that you need, but that's what they want to do. So we support them with that but they can still step away.
Yes.
And the guys who want to build a more lifestyle-based business, but they get stuck in the doing. And what tends to happen is when you're doing all the time, you're associating you doing and you being on the tools or in the field.
Yeah.
As that's making money, and you can't dissociate that you actually not working there and working on the business is what's making the money. Because you get the clients in the door, you still got to do the quotes, you still got to get the contract signed so that the work's going to appear for you to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of showing business owners that that's actually the balance is you've got the team now. We've got to train them up to be able to do the work independently, but you can still do it if you want, but you need to spend some time in the office doing some of those fantastic admin tasks. But then also understanding their numbers. So plumbers that I'm working with at the moment, these are the guys that scaled the business in 2 years, have done absolutely phenomenally. Two young guys, the one, he had knee surgery, so he was forced
He couldn't do anything.
and work on tenders. So that helped him slow down a little bit and realize he doesn't actually have to be out there micromanaging the team. We've worked over the past 3 to 4 months in them really understanding their numbers, how they're getting their money, when the money comes in, that they have such a good understanding of their numbers that his partner has stepped back as well. And he goes, I don't have to be there, because I understand my numbers. I can see on the cash flow forecast when the money's coming in. The boys are out on the tools anyway. So it doesn't matter if I'm there or not. As long as they're sticking to the deadline and doing what they need to do, the money's coming in, so I can focus on the things that are actually going to build and grow this business. So for the past month or two, he's actually taken a step back. And he's not as much in the field either. So both directors are actually working on the business instead of in it, which is really hard when you've got a team that size, because you feel like you need to just control everything the whole time.
Yeah, it's tough when you've got lots of people to like look after and
Yeah.
yeah, you want to make sure that they're doing everything. Like, how do you find? Because some people will say, oh, what I do is complicated and I can't really like put it down in a process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is like quite a common like, well, I know how to do it and I can't really explain to someone because every time it's different. Like, what do
Yeah.
you do with that?
So, and I laugh because there's ways my business is different.
Yes.
I can't do that because there's no actual process. I just know and I see and I feel what's going to work with clients, and then I make it work.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, well, that's intuitive, but we actually need a guide. So the part of my business is different. Yes, every business is different. Doesn't matter what trade or business that you're in, every business is different. So it doesn't need to be absolutely like, we don't work on a cookie cutter approach. Like, it needs to be tailored anyway. But the systems work. Your business is different, so we apply it in a different way. I don't actually have a set process and it changes all the time. Well, it's about, so every stage of business and everything that you do evolves with time, right?
Yes.
So you might handle clients differently in different situations and your process might change, but there's still standard things that you're running through. There's still the meet and greet. These are the things that I need to get through in the first meeting. So as long as you've got a process for what are those critical requirements that you need to get out, how you structure the conversation and how you deal with it, that can be different,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. I think like once you start asking people like, okay, you had this client, like what did you do? And they say, oh, I did this and I went and saw them and then I sent them an email and then I did this and then I did this. And you say, okay, well, how about this client? And then they basically go through the same process. And once you ask them enough times, then you see, well, these are the things that you do the same.
Yes,
And you
processes.
think it's different, but it's
It's not.
just maybe your approach is different. Like maybe you say something different to one person to another, but like the mechanics of what you're doing are exactly the same, regardless of which client it is.
That's it. And your approach will be completely different to mine.
Yeah,
So I was in a team full of business coaches. We all had the same process. We all did it completely different, right? Because your flavor is what people are buying. So your staff's flavor, if you're putting a process together of these are the cool things that you need to get through, the flavor that they put on it to get the outcome. As long as you get the outcome, that's all that
yeah.
matters.
And people adapt, like what their personality is. you might have a specific email that you want to send, and it just doesn't really jive with that person and how they would talk to someone. So it gets changed just a little bit, but the same process is happening and the same outcome is there, but it's just personality, and people, you can't just force people to be a robot because no one wants to talk to a robot. People want to talk to personalities and feel like they can connect with that person, right?
Absolutely. So there is like in every business, everything can get systematized. You don't want it to be a cookie cutter approach because clients can feel that.
Yes. Yeah. And
And
then,
no.
yeah, and maybe that is your goal, to be cookie cutter approach and like have a big business that's you just trying to do volume. But I think for probably the clientele that you're working with and the people, is that they're just wanting to build relationships with the people that they're working with,
Yeah.
right?
And they like even your larger businesses is you've got like everything is standardized, but you're still working with a human on the other side of the screen. So when I'm working with guys who are tendering with government, their issues are different to what homeowners in the residential space will be dealing with.
Yeah.
But you've got to go, okay, yes, this is government, we're doing a tender. There's still a person on the other side who you're dealing with. So what is their fears or their challenges that you need to show how you're addressing? And yes, the way that you're going to deliver it is differently,
Yeah.
but it's still unique to that individual. It's still unique to the corporate guy. If you're doing big, huge corporate contracts, there's someone at the end of that process that needs to deal with you. So it's still systematized to a way, but there's still those aspects that you've got to make unique.
Make unique and I think, I guess that would probably go down to, if you're the owner of the business and you're worried about how someone's going to approach something, that's more about you worried about the person that you've appointed as opposed to the actual system. It's like you need to appoint the people that you feel are going to fit with your business and approach the clients the way that you want them to be approached in general,
Yeah.
with their own personality, and trying to, I think there's like that distinction that people kind of miss sometimes when you're looking at employees and what you want them to do when there's a system in
Yeah.
place, and where the worry is it actually the system, or is it that you're worried about the people that you've hired?
Yeah. Because if you can trust your system, then it's the person.
Yes.
And then there's training, or maybe they're just not a good cultural fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something in your recruitment process that you need to address. But there is like, if you're able to deliver it and another person's able to deliver it and get results, if you're not comfortable with the person that's delivering it, it's not a
Yeah.
system issue.
Exactly. But I think a lot of owners, like business owners, try and get out, like try and blame the system for, like that there isn't a system and that's why people can't do it or whatever, instead of
Yeah.
that it could potentially be the person.
Like the reality is there's a lot of moving parts, right? So
Yeah.
when you're just the employee, all you need to focus on is your job. When you're a business owner, you're wearing multiple hats. So to get every single hat right and perfect is hard. And that's why we get people in place, because we're working so much that we can't grow the business. Then we get new people to help do the actual doing of the job. They doing the doing, and then, oh, look, another hat's appeared. Managing and lead,
Yeah.
right?
Magic hats that
The
just
other
appear out
hat,
of nowhere.
which has got a different level of stress
Yeah.
because we don't have the support and the education when you start. You're trying to figure out all these hats and how to do them perfectly, and you can't. It's a lot of moving parts. And wherever you focus your attention, whatever you're not focusing is going to go. And it's about finding the balance and getting the supports and the structures in place to go, okay, I can actually do all 7 of these without the business going to shit.
Yeah. And not neglecting a hat for too long,
Yeah.
and at least, picking it up and saying, what do I do with this and how do I get this just one step further forward than what it was last week?
And that's where, like, when I mentioned about who's who are you answering to, or who's holding you accountable as the business owner?
Yeah.
If you've got a coach going, okay, well, this is where the challenges are in the business. These are the KPIs that we're setting for you, and this is what we're going to do to work towards it. Then you've got the ability to keep an eye on those hats that you're not so strong, that don't look too good on you.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to touch the hat.
Yeah,
Leave it over there. Just, I don't want to touch it.
you can start adjusting it so that it suits your style.
Yeah. Or
But if
just get used to wearing it.
Yeah, or get used to wearing it. But if you're avoiding the hat the whole time,
Yeah. You
then it
taking
is
that
going to
opportunity away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see we're kind of getting to an hour, so I probably should start wrapping up soon. But one question is around, well, actually, I've got two questions left. The one question was, when people do business coaching, kind of what is like the time investment from them in terms of, when they're talking to you? Is it, I'm assuming you have like a meeting with them once a week or once a month or whatever it might be, or once a fortnight, and then if you've got, say, these things that you should be doing, like on average, I know it's very different, but like, is it like a 5-hour commitment a week? Is it 10 hours? Is it like 2
Yeah.
hours? What's the,
So from a contract basis, it's basically month to month, so you're not fixed in,
yeah,
because that's how confident we are in terms of getting results. So if you're not happy, you can leave, give a month's notice, you're fine. The work that you need to do in addition to the coaching sessions, so the coaching sessions are hour a week, up to an hour a week, and then you've got to invest an additional 4 hours.
right,
I'm
okay.
yet to find a business owner that does, because usually,
A full 4 hours?
yeah, they
Oh,
don't.
right.
So usually what happens, so I've got the golden rule. The golden rule is I don't care when you do it or how you do it.
Just do it.
I care that it's done and before the coaching session. So literally sometimes they're scrambling the hour before getting their homework done, and
It's just like being at school.
that's it. And like some people don't like coaching because it feels like you're in school, but it's more sometimes they use tasks, sometimes they use actions, sometimes they use homework. Because if I use homework with some people, you can see them literally like withdrawing, and actions or tasks just feel a little bit more comfortable. But that's the one requirement. As long as it's done before I see you next, you've got a whole week. Make sure it's done.
I mean, 5 hours in the scope of a business is not a lot.
It's not a lot.
You could literally do an hour a day, I guess, if you wanted to try and break it down. But I'm guessing some of it would be relatively meaty and take a couple of hours to sit and go through.
And so I'm not the one who sets the tasks. So that's another
Right.
key, right? So we'll have our chats, we have our strategy and our plan that we're working towards. You might have challenges that have come up. At the end of the session, I go, okay, what are your actions for this week? That's literally the line that I use.
Right.
And
they tell you.
they tell me. So from our discussion, this is what they've noted that they'll work on. And I say, okay, what's the one thing that I should be checking on next week that you want completed? So they might come away with 6 action items that sometimes they might be capable of doing all 6, sometimes might be completely unrealistic. But there's just one thing that they need to do to move themselves forward, that they need to say. I will check on all of the 6 points.
Yeah.
But I will step into coach mode if the one thing that they've committed to is not done, right? Because you just in 1% progress. You can get the 1%ers in, then you're making gains and you're moving forward.
Yeah.
There's point in front of me if you can't even do the 1%. So yeah, it's literally and the reason I do that is because if I come up with the tasks, guess what?
Doesn't get done at all, probably.
You're not invested into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why, because you're like, well, she's told me I need to do this, this, and this, and I don't really agree with that, so I'm just not going to do it.
It's my daughter's birthday. Then I've got to go and look after my sister-in-law's kids and what my life has got on the table for me to, like, this week, there's no way I'm going to do what the coach says. So, okay, well, yes, I'll do that. And it's not going to get done. But if you say, actually, I can do this week, you're more committed to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably a good place to wrap things up. And
Yes, thank you.
I do want to kind of just put a shout out for like where people can get in touch with you and where they can connect with you if they are interested in talking about business coaching.
Yeah, I think if you just want to get a feel for what we're all about and get to know us a bit more, you can hop onto our Facebook page, ChangeState Business Coaching, and that will just show you a bit more about what we do and how we do it. And then if you do want to get in touch, you can send me an email, so info@changestate.co. You can also send me a message or give me a phone call on 027 541 3708. But make sure you're ready, and if you just need to have a chat and brainstorm and just get something off your chest, get an idea, we're also here to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think there was definitely a lot of things that we covered, and that will give people some things to think about in terms of business coaching and how that can be valuable in their business.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacques.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained some useful insights. If you found it helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit from it too. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find details to connect with today's guests in the show notes. And remember, the information shared here is for educational purposes only. For personalized support, reach out to a qualified financial advisor or appropriate professional. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Building Sense for Life.